Okay, it's starting. Do you want to take us away?
All right. Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Selling with Science. Researchers are running studies that can help you sell your product better, but you don't have time to read hundreds of scientific peer-reviewed papers, and that's why we created Selling with Science, the weekly 20-minute science top-up that will put you ahead. I am Nikki Elbaz, and this is...
Hey, I'm Sophia Dagnan. Today we're going to talk about a guy called BJ Fogg and the theory of tiny habits. So, as usual, we're going to introduce what the theory is all about, and then we're going to discuss it and see how we can apply it to different marketing campaigns and even to like our own personal optimization process. Just because I'm a giant nerd and a fan of optimizing your own process as much as possible before trying to fix anything else. So yeah, let me tell you about BJ Fogg. So he's a Stanford scientist and pretty sure he's a psychologist. Could be wrong here. No, he's a behavioral psychologist. Like I'm 99% sure. But while studying human behavior and how we form habits, he came across the idea that there's 3 ways that we trigger change. So through giant epiphanies, by changing our environment, or by using tiny habits. And so, I'd like us to chat about all 3 different ways, but first I'm going to introduce what tiny habits is all about, just because it's a bit like, what is this? I mean, it sounds obvious, it's clearly about tiny habits, but let's actually delve into it. So the way Fogg introduced it was he was talking about our favorite thing, and your dentist's favorite thing, which is flossing.
I was going to say candy.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about like my flossing habits here because that would be embarrassing. But he said that the best way to actually develop a flossing habit is to tag it on to something that you already do. So we all brush our teeth in the morning and evening. Or let's assume we all brush our teeth in the morning and evening. So he said that to start flossing, the best thing is after you brush your teeth, you just floss 1 tooth. And so you do that like for a couple of days. And then you add a second tooth to that first tooth. And then you basically keep attaching an extra tooth until you're flossing your whole mouth. But the idea is that it's a lot easier to change when you already tack on the new behavior, like a tiny new behavior, to the old behavior that you already do. And that just makes it easy because it creates that trigger in your brain. So, Nahama, I'm not going to ask you how often you floss, but what do you think of the concept?
See, I find this really interesting because for 2 reasons. First of all, I find it really hard whenever I do one of these like small habitual changes. I find it really hard to stick to staying small. Like it's like if I'm pulling out the floss and doing the flossing, I'm not just going to do 1 tooth. Like, I don't know, am I an overachiever? Like, no, like I need to just like, it's out. I'm going to floss the whole thing, which kind of kills the whole idea of doing tiny habits to like propel you to keep going. So I find this very interesting.
But does it? Because I think the idea is that you're eventually going to tack on all teeth anyway. So like with something like flossing that it's a small habit in the first place.
That is true. I think that's a really crucial distinction, because I feel like it's important to do the small bits so that you don't go overwhelmed and like by taking on this huge piece. But flossing is small to begin with, so it's like it's kind of pathetic to do it 1 tooth. So it already is small to just do that like the rest of your teeth. Whereas like if you're trying to do real goals, then it is dangerous to just try to swallow everything. Like you do have to start with small and curb yourself and not let yourself go past small, even though it's really tempting to just do everything. Like just this once, I have time. Like, no, we're starting small and then we could grow incrementally. I think that's important. So I think that's a cool distinction of like, if it's something small, then you can jump ahead. So this is really interesting to me that he did this study with, was this a study or this was just his theory?
I think this is where he started, and then he took it from there. And he now has like a course on how to help you get through it.
How to floss your
teeth. Yes, how to floss your teeth for idiots like me.
The next thing is that I actually like I mean, maybe this is totally tangential and not important, but for me, the hard part of flossing is not flossing that one tooth. It's like all the setup beforehand. So I feel like when you're setting goals, you have to take into account all the stuff that goes beforehand. So like it might be a small step in your goal, like the outcome might be a small step, but how much work does it take you to get to that small step? I think that's important too.
See,
Anyway.
I think that's why this ties into the idea of like tying it into an owed behavior. Because it is the setup. Like I find it like with something I say, going to the gym. Like the idea of leaving the house and going is far more difficult than actually working out once you're there. Because once you're there, well, what are you gonna do? You're at the gym anyway. Like you might as well do something. But going is so hard. And I think that's why this idea of tying the new behavior to the old behavior, like you brush your teeth, you put like the floss in your mouth and you do one tooth. Well, at that point, you gotta do your whole mouth. I mean, like exactly who flosses one tooth? But it eliminates that like mind difficulty. The just like all the things that goes in your brain before you do that thing you want to do.
Cool. And that's why they have gyms and co-working spaces, because you're already there.
I don't know if that would work for me. Like, wouldn't you feel all like sweaty and icky? And
Oh, totally.
That's my dog, by the way.
Hi, dog. It would never work for me. I would be like, no, I have to bring a towel and then I'm supposed to work. No, weird. It's too weird. But I think that's probably where it comes from, is the like, you're already here.
Yeah.
Or maybe just that like everyone likes to live in one place. I don't know.
I think like I love the idea of it. Like when you see those startups that have like coffee shops and like things in there. And I think like in my head, I'm like, I love the idea of this. But I think in practice, when it comes to actually using it, it will be like, do you actually ever get to use them, or do you just like think that you have this really nice place, but like never actually do anything with it? Which is again this whole thing of having too many things you're trying to do.
Interesting. Although I do wonder of the idea of having it, how that affects our morale, or like, for example, employee morale in terms of like these awesome workspaces that have tons of stuff. Like I actually worked in an agency that had like, they had a happy hour and they had like couches and books to just like, he was like, if you're ever feeling stuck or in a rut, like just leave your desk, go like be creative, do stuff. We never did. Like we never did. When we were stuck, we would like go shop online or go on Facebook. But knowing it was there, knowing there was that like ability did kind of create good morale. So it's just interesting.
Yeah, I think it does have I think just having the options open does make it easier. But
we like having options, but we don't like having choices. I think that's what it is.
Well, okay, like, do we not like having choices, or is it just the choices are difficult? Because, like, while I know, like, logically, that it's very difficult for humans to make decisions, I love having the options. Like, the second somebody starts taking options away from me, I get really, really possessive, even if I don't want them. Like, even if I would never make that choice, I'm still like, but that option is open to me. Like, why are you taking it away?
Yeah, totally. Well, that's where urgency comes in really, really nicely. As that tying into that whole like, here's your choice for a bonus, and then I'm gonna take it away if you don't sign up right now.
So how do you think we as marketers could use, say, like this concept of tiny habits? So tying in like the desired behavior you want from your customers to something they're doing already, and tie it in with that urgency.
Oh, adding the urgency. That's interesting. Because we were talking about like in, let's say, an onboarding sequence of tying things in when you're triggering them to do things anyway, just having them do a small other habit that benefits you. But that's interesting to also tie in the urgency. I wonder if it would be overload, like too many things at once. But I feel like urgency never is too much at once. It's just too hard sometimes. Like you could push urgency too hard, but I don't think it's something that you can't layer on other things. I have to think about that. It sounds a little too theoretical right now. So that's interesting, like some sort of urgency sequence to do a habit that then triggers them to do some other thing. That could be interesting. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I've been thinking about how you could apply it, and like this morning I was researching Demio, and while I was scrolling down their homepage, something really cool happened. I was looking through their testimonials, and then this in-app message popped up saying, "Hey, do you want to read some customer case studies?" And I thought, "Oh, this is like a really nice timed event." But so when I was thinking about our conversation that was coming up just now, I thought, how could you tie in-app messaging with, like, say, tiny S's or like an existing behavior that gets them to do something desirable? Because that could be a really cool, like, mini trigger.
That's interesting. I'm also thinking about like all the Facebook messaging that's happening nowadays too. Like that's already a habit, is being on Facebook and checking Facebook. And I mean, then you kind of walk the fine line between being intrusive. Like I don't want you in my Facebook feed. So it is interesting. But yeah, I think chat bots are really interesting. I personally love them. I love them. I really do. I think they're so fun. But this is reminding me, I signed up for a seminar and this chatbot was like, "Hey, do you want a t-shirt?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And it was like, "Okay, cool. Now send it to your friends, and send them a t-shirt too," or something like that. And I wonder if that's something like that could be triggered in terms of, referrals. I feel like there's an opportunity there. I'm still fuzzy on how that would be triggered, but I feel like sharing is something that people do. You just have to give them the value of why they should be sharing.
Yeah, so I signed up for MicroConf, which is like a conference in our space. And I think it was yesterday or the day before, they sent an email out saying, like, to basically everybody who's on their list who wants to go to the conference or has signed up. And so they sent out this email saying that AppSumo has decided to sponsor one person. And so if you signed up for this takeaway, like giveaway, whatever it's called, contest, that's the one, then you get like your ticket and your travel paid for. So when you click through, it gave you, I think, about 10 different options, and each option gave you extra entries. But it was something like, like our Twitter, and do like our YouTube channel, share with friends, etc., like all the usual ones. But I thought that was a really good example of basically getting to do that tiny little extra step after you've already done something. So you've clicked on, you want to enter this free contest, because, like, why wouldn't you? And then you have these tiny little actions that are incredibly painless. Like you just clicked a button and it added extra like entries to your account and like sent you directly to Twitter. So it was really seamless. And I thought that's a good example of this.
That's cool. Yeah, because those things are so easy. Like you just click and it's already connected to your Twitter and boom, like Rafflecopter, all these kinds of things. They really do make it so easy. That's like a one tooth kind of thing. That's cool. Like the signing up for the promo is brushing your teeth, and then the Rafflecopter thing is that one tooth. That's cool. And then sometimes these promo things will have like a whole bunch of options, and some of them are harder. So that's kind of the, like, if you're at the step of flossing your whole mouth, then you could do this too. But like it's optional. You don't have to. You could just do the few steps first. And then like just you lose points potentially. So that's a cool example. I like that.
I wonder how you could use it like beyond promotions, because I mean promotions and I suppose like getting referrals or getting somebody to share your stuff is like one way, but could you use it for other things? I wonder.
Well, it's kind of reminding me of upsells, in that, you're already buying something. Hey, just check this little box and we will just add it to your order. It's very easy for you. You don't have to type in your credit card again. I think, it's a lot of it is about the ease and the value. Like I know that brushing my teeth is really important. I mean, that flossing is important. So like I'll do this like semi-hard step that's really an easy step because I know it's important. So upselling on something that's really important to me. That could be. That seems like a very obvious one.
So you say important, but then I'm kind of thinking about my own habits. Like, there's a bunch of important things that I feel are important that I don't do.
Don't we all?
It's like, picking the apple over like the chocolate cake. I'm not sure in my life I have ever picked the apple over the chocolate cake, like when presented with that option. Even though like the back of your hand has like, well, it's important to like stay healthy and be alive, and then I'm like, but chocolate cake.
So interesting. Maybe upsells need to be more emotional than like actually value packed. Because when you're triggering a sort of habit kind of thing, you're not in a logical space. You're in a like, this is convenient kind of space. It's kind of a little bit more on the emotional side.
I suppose it depends on how you look at buying, like whether you think buying is like an emotion-driven process or whether it's a logic-driven process.
Well, it depends.
Does it?
Yes. I was actually just reading a study that I cannot remember where I read it or why I read it or anything like that, but it was talking about how there are certain instances where you do want to be playing to logic, not emotion. Like we really do tend to buy an emotion, but there are some decisions, and I don't remember what kind of decisions. I'll have to find that study. But there are some decisions that you feel more emotionally safe when you're presented with a logical argument. So it's not that the decision is really like a logical decision. It's that you need logic to get that emotional yes, which is so convoluted and fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's that whole using data to back up your thinking. Like it's important because it basically confirms your bias towards buying that thing that you want anyway, but it gives you like a good sounding reason that you can share with someone. I think especially like for big ticket items, we have this desire to be able to explain exactly why like buying that thing makes sense. And it's not just because I want it, because that doesn't sound good. Like you can't go to your partner and go, well, why did you buy this like $2,000 whatever? It's like, because I wanted it. Yeah.
And that's where you'll get like these luxury brands that do like the most ridiculous things, like these watches that are like, I don't know, high grade pilot, like navigational stuff. And you're just like, why does anyone care about that? And I think that kind of plays into this is like, well, because now you could back up that this is like a high grade thing that you want to be spending money on. Even though it's
when I'm flying planes.
And you go work. Exactly. Flying planes. Yeah, cool stuff.
Yeah. It's the aspirational thing, I think, as well, because those brands, especially like the watch brands, you see the ads, a lot of them are very, I think, aspirational, like the luxurious brands. You have like a lot of really nice clothes, really nice settings, like mountaintops. With one ad, there's this guy that's just coming out of the sea, and I'm not sure what that has to do with watches, but apparently it's like... Yeah, that. I just kept wondering why there was a tree growing out of the sea. It made no sense. But hey, apparently it sells watches, so...
Yeah, can't argue with that. Yeah, cool. Okay, so what were those three things again? The three types of habits he said. There's the big epiphanies, there's change of setting, and then there's the tiny habits.
Yeah, and I think because as marketers, we have very little control over our customers' settings, except for like any user experience stuff that you do. And epiphanies are hard to create. Like, I think I still prefer going for trying to make them feel big epiphanies than making small changes. But I think it makes a lot more sense to try to see where small changes can take us.
Because big epiphanies are fun, but that's... Yeah, it's not about fun, it's about what's effective. And tiny habits sounds like it's easier to implement. So
yeah. It's the process, I think, thing versus like the glamour of starting with like a blank page or just it's the excitement. Big epiphanies have this excitement that you're starting something new, and tiny habits sound like boring and strategic and like they would actually work, and who wants that?
Exactly. So, Sophia, what are we talking about next week?
Next week we're talking about one of my favorite people of all time, Daniel Kahneman, and how the brain works, and I can't wait.
All right. Okay, we'll see you next week. Subscribe, and yeah, same time, same place.
Bye.
Thanks so much.